Good day, good day. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jay, and this is Homeschool Yo Kids podcast. Before we get started, be sure to check out our schedule, our traveling schedule on homeschoolyourkidsexpo.com. Check out the many cities that we still have left to visit, and I'm sure we're coming to a city near you. So please look at that. And remember, homeschooling was never meant to be done alone. It takes a village. So, major shout out to a couple of our sponsors that are mission to ensure that you find your tribe. Classical Conversations is a nationwide curriculum provider that also offers community support. And Basecamp is an amazing free app that you should download because you can check out the community next to you. Like you find it's like a Zillow but for homeschoolers. So you'll be able to find like resources, classes, and also families that you can hook up with and mix and mingle. So check them out because that encourages community building. And today we have with us Jude. Jude, introduce yourself.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Jude. It's a pleasure to be here. Jay, I do appreciate you having us. I am here with Limitless Education Group, which is an international education company. I've been around for the past 3 years, 4-ish years. Got started really right near the end of the pandemic, and now we're international in about 30 different countries and 30 different states at this point. But yeah, I'm an educator. I'm a private tutor, education consultant. I've been in the education industry myself for about 11 years now. And first got started off when I was in university, college, actually helping my older brother. So my older brother was a dean at different charter schools in New York, Brooklyn. And every summer after college, I would come down to help him do professional development, which was, teaching teachers how to teach, right? But every year I got back, I noticed that the test scores for these charter schools we were working with weren't actually improving. But that's just, that's how they measure the kids by is that the test scores. And so that was really the first seed that was planted within myself of, okay, what's happening here in education? How come we're putting in all this work over these summers to make sure these teachers are prepared, but the needle's not been moving, right? So after I graduated, moved abroad to Beijing, China, where I served as a again private tutor and education consultant. So I was helping families over there apply to schools in the United States, different private schools, boarding schools, universities in US, Canada, Australia, UK, just in the West. And even with these kids that I was working with, so these are some of the top students in the country. So you could even consider them some of the top students in the world. But I noticed that they were having similar problems to the students I was working with over in Brooklyn, right? So start to realize didn't matter if you're from Brooklyn, Beijing, Bangkok, Benin, right? All students are having the same fundamental problem within education, right? And that was really related to their ability to like learn how to learn, right? How to adapt and how to be flexible, right? Because these students in China, when they would go over, they would start writing me back and saying, "Hey, I'm struggling. I'm still struggling being able to adapt to my new environment." So that was the second seed that was planted within me of okay, what's really happening here in education? So long story short, I pandemic happened, so I couldn't stay in China too much longer. So I had to come back to the United States, and that's when I just really started my mission of looking for ways to empower students, both children and adults, to actually like solve this fundamental problem of okay, why are we not understanding like how to be flexible and adapt to our learning? How come we can't learn how to relearn very, very quickly? And so that's when we started our organization here, partnered with a few friends of mine as well to like develop tools and technologies to be able to support like these new methods of learning, right? So that we're building I like to call it a evolution in education, not a revolution, because when something revolves, right, just goes over and over again. So we're taking education to the next level and bringing it into the 21st century.
Okay. Like that was so much to unpack there, but the plot thickens because you said, okay, the same things that was going on in Brooklyn, the same thing you saw in Beijing, which is kids who are generally struggling. Struggling how though?
Struggling in their, I mean, fundamentally in their ability to learn how to learn, right? So when it comes to education, people like the way the current system works is that you'll memorize a bunch of information. Like you could say you study for a test, you do your flashcards, your office hours, your study groups, and you cram and cram and cram. After you take the test, though, how much did you actually remember
Right.
the
Yes,
next
that's what I was
day?
gonna say. You don't even retain much of it. Like
Right.
yeah, no, you don't.
So is that learning, really? Right?
No, it's memorizing enough to pass the test.
Is memorizing exactly. And so again, they didn't have that core foundation to be able to learn how to retain that information and still be able to apply it. And so that's the similarities that I was seeing. And then within that, again, they go to a new environment and they weren't able to adapt because they didn't have any true skills.
Okay, so I mean, but what is that though? Like, because that's how the system is set up for the kids to essentially memorize, not necessarily gain skills. How do you work on that?
How do we work on that? So it comes, what's the fundamental, what would you say is the basic core tenet of a person being able to learn new things? Like how does a person actually learn?
I think it comes better when you're enjoying it. One, but probably being immersed or doing hands-on approach. I think that helps
Mhm,
also, like to actually, do more as opposed to like just listening or receiving lectures. I
mhm.
think that hmm, I don't know. That's a great question.
All right, great question, right? And
Yes,
I appreciate the answer. Those definitely are a part of it. But the core like basic first principle of education comes down to a student or a person's vocabulary, right? Their vocabulary, because how you learn anything is through being able to process the information, right? Being able
and
to
that's what I was thinking. Reading comprehension, like that was my first thought because like that's just me in general. I just feel
sure.
like you need to be able to comprehend in like anything that you're taking in. But
Mhm.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so like that's the next step, right? You can't actually read unless you have the vocabulary, right? And the problem that we see a lot with the system today is children and their parents think that they know how to read because they can sound the words out on a page. But just because I can sound out the words doesn't actually mean I'm understanding what I'm reading,
Yes.
right? And so that's the problem. So children actually don't know how to read. And if you don't know how to read, you don't know how to learn.
Well, you're coming back to what I always talk about, this literacy crisis. Like look, I talk about it all the time with everybody who wants to defend the system that is graduating functioning illiterate individuals. I said we're
Mhm.
walking around in a society that most people can't read. And like you said, on the level of comprehending what it is that you're reading, not even just being able to read phonetically the words, but actually understanding what it is or being able to process what it is you just read.
Precisely, precisely. And then like the problem within that comes up where our society is going right now. Like we have AI, we have automation, we have all these
Crutches,
technologies
yes.
coming out very, very, very rapidly. And if a student doesn't have the ability to keep up with that, right, be able to process the information quick enough, how are they going to be able to compete in this AI future, in this new world, right? So the thing is, it's easy. Like the simple part is helping a kid get an A in school, right? That's easy, right? But what does that even mean anymore? How much is that worth?
Nothing, because you could cheat your way to it. Hey, I did it. Did it. So it doesn't mean anything.
I know all the valedictorians and the salutatorians at my high school, right? They're all in cahoots, right?
Exactly. Like,
Right?
why not? Why not?
That's the thing. But then as the world changes, like the most important skill is a child's ability to be flexible, to be adaptable, to know how to process information, right? Because my family's from Ghana, right? And they immigrated to the United States. So there was a point where one day they woke up and they're in a complete new environment. So they had to learn how to adapt to their environment, learn how to function in a new society and within a new culture, right? But if a child doesn't have that ability to, again, to be able to learn new information very quickly and process that, they're going to be left behind. They're going to be way left behind, especially in a world where every single day there's, you know, maybe 1,000 new articles being produced, 1,000 new videos, 1,000 new movies, right? If they're 18 years old still reading at third grade level. Like, how is that going to work
Talk
out?
about it, Jude. Talk about it, because I literally just had this conversation like with my Jersey friends. We were just talking about that as far as like why are our kids left in elementary? Like because I taught 12th grade English. My last couple years in the classroom was in 12th grade English, and
Mhm,
so I was like, okay, even because seventh grade I experienced when teaching seventh grade English, I experienced it.
mhm,
When teaching 10th grade English, I experienced, but then to see at 12th grade, oh, we're sending these kids out into the world with this third grade, fourth grade education, basically, because like we're leaving them back. That they're getting left back there, and I'm just like, why? Like how and why?
No child left behind, isn't it?
Right? They
Right?
all have been. All of them getting left behind. Like everybody.
Right. And so that the crazy thing is like parents, like they'll think their kid is good, right? My kid's at the top of the class, they got all A's, right? But when we go, like, so we do assessments for parents as well, just so they can actually see the reality, right? Have an outside perspective. And they'll have their kid do assessment and they're reading at like a second grade level, third grade level. They're like, wait, what's happening? Like, I don't understand like how this is possible. Right. You gotta explain to them, okay, the system's not set up for your child to actually be able to develop. Because the thing is, if you're gonna do well in school, you were going to do well anyway, right? You're not actually the way the system works, school works, is that you're not actually learning anything new. Like the kids that do well in school have been supported at home already, right? From a young age to be able to learn, right? To be able to interact with their environment, right? So all like parents are the first teachers, right? All learning comes from the parents. And so part of the process too, if a parent isn't supported, right, to understand what their ability to learn is as well, they're going to pass that down into the kids. So with the way that we work, it's a whole family approach. It's not just about helping the kid do well. It's like also really supporting the parents to learn, like, again, how to educate both themselves and their children.
Parent, like that's why hence my organization. I want to remind parents continuously how important their role is in their children's education. It's like we got to a place where like been programmed to think, oh, okay, they're going to go into this building and magically they're just going to get everything they need because they told us we need to send them here once they turn 5 and they're going to be okay once they get to 18. But I challenge parents, I think on a couple episodes ago, read with your child. Like, no matter how old they are, like, have them read to you. Like, just be like, oh, come here, come read this to me. Like, just to see, and then ask them questions pertaining to what it is they read to really see,
Mhm.
like, is your child understanding or is your child able to read in general? And you'd probably be shocked at the results.
Yeah, they would be. They would be. They would be. But when they're able to, be honest, like that's why I love, working with the families that we work with because they on a certain level, they have this feeling that okay, something isn't quite right. Like my child should be doing a little bit better than this. And then as they get higher in grades, like for example, we got this one child who when he was in fourth grade, this was like last summer, he was going to fourth grade and he was still reading at a second grade level, right? The father came to us because he was just like so distraught. He's like, why is my kid, failing every class right now? Like, why is he like not able to do his spelling homework? He was even working with a tutor, right, at home privately every single week, but still there was no change. There was no support. We came in, did the assessment. Well, actually, when we did the assessment, he realized his kid is like way far behind, and started working with him, with some of our tools, some of our programs, very diligently during the summer. And after three months, right, just that summer period, he was able to go back into school, back in the system, and actually, start doing his homework on his own, right? Because we support him fundamentally to learn how to process the information and start to be able to figure out for his own. So that's seen on a couple points, right? He now has the confidence, hey, I can learn, like I can figure this out, like I'm not falling behind anymore. And then two, right, he has the results to prove it, right? So like that's just like one client example. I'll tell you another story. There's a kid that we work with. He's 7, 8 years old at this point. Been working with him since he was like 10 months old, 12 months old, right? So you can start that early, right? Some parents feel like, hey, she's just a baby. Like, why should he be being educated at this point? But they're actually learning when they're in the womb still, right? all the stuff that's going on in the household, they can hear that. They can absorb that, right? So whether you're doing it consciously or not, your kids are picking up on things. All right. So with this family, started with them when they were 10 months old. Now the kid is yeah, eight. But at that point we start, with the letters. By the time he was 2.5 years old, like he could recognize all the letters of the alphabet, right? And now he's at the point where he's, the book Rich Dad Poor Dad? You've heard
You
that,
can
right?
read that.
I mean, how old were you when you first learned about assets and liabilities?
How old am I? Or am I now? I'm probably like late 20s, early 30s,
Right.
probably.
So
Yes.
he was 7 years old reading that book, right?
Amazing.
And he could tell you in his own words, like he will summarize, hey, assets are like money growing on trees, right? In his own words, and liabilities are like money down the drain, right? So imagine what he's going to be doing when he's 17, when
Changing the world.
he's seven, precisely, right? So that's really our purpose here with our organization is to create geniuses, right? Create.
Exactly. I feel like they come out geniuses and I feel like we dumb them down. Like I
Yeah,
really like that's my theory. I feel like all children are born, little geniuses and then we just put all the societal things on them that doesn't really belong there and it's just we just dumb them
yeah.
down.
I mean, you gotta understand, like, what is the purpose of the current education system? Like, where does it come from? You ever heard the concept of if the product is if something is free, you are the product?
Oh, I like that.
Hmm.
Talk about it, please.
Think about it. Why do you not have to pay for a Facebook account? Why you not have to
Mm,
pay for an Instagram account, YouTube account, right? You are the product because they're collecting all of your
all
data
your
to be
data.
able to
Yes.
remarket to you. And like actually their customers are the advertising agencies, right? So they always want to sell you something. So that same concept applies with the school system, right? You're sending your kids to the public schools for free. Okay, if you look at what's the purpose behind that? Why is it happening? And I mean, the system wasn't created for a child to actually be at the top, right? It was put in place by, Henry Ford and Rockefeller. We've done some of your research, these kind of guys, because I mean, Henry Ford said himself, he doesn't want a nation of thinkers, he wants a nation of workers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. And so the whole purpose of the system is like just to get your child educated enough to be able to go work at a job and do those basic tasks at a job, but not actually able to, think beyond that process, that system. And so it's really crucial now for parents to start looking at these points because as technology is becoming more rampant, we've got AI, ChatGPT, Tesla is building their robots. There are tools, technologies that can do those same basic, simple tasks. I don't know. I don't care if you're the CEO or the janitor, right? Everybody up and down is being affected by this change.
You're replaceable.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, pretty simply. Like I know a guy at well he works at like a grocery store, but his sister works at Google, right? Sister works at Google, came from Dubai. Sister started working at Google, and he was telling me how every single month Google sends out like a list of names on email. And that list of names is the list of people that are, being let go, right? It's not even,
What?
yeah, it's not even like a person making these decisions anymore. It's actually an AI that's deciding who needs to be let go, right?
What?
Right. Yeah. And this is one of the top companies in the world. I know another guy who he was actually coding his replacement. He used to be an engineer at Google yeah, I met him 2, 3 years ago. And he was telling me how for the past couple of years he was like, working on this project. And by the time he finished it, they let him go as well because
His name was on the list. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
he made the technology that replaced him, right?
Mm.
And so it's ever more important these days for a child to actually learn how to create for themselves, right? Learn some of these entrepreneurial skills from a younger age. But again, most important, learn how to be able to just think outside the current standard, because that's how you'd survive by creating something new, bringing something of value to the marketplace, to an employer. We got another kid who's 6 years old, 7 years old at this point. But when she was 5 years old, we supported her to write her first book, right? And the story behind that, it was all her own idea, but the story behind that is she was learning about where paper comes from, right? And how the Egyptians and then the Chinese were the first people to invent paper, right? The next chapter was about how the Romans put paper into the binding forms that we see today, like as books in the library. And she thought to herself, hey, I want to do my own project with paper. And so she said, I want to write a book. So she put her book together. She actually has two books now. She learned how to use AI to do the images in the second one, right? So 5 years old knows how to use AI already. But when she finished her book, she handed it to her mom and said, "Hey, here's my book. Can we get it printed?" And so her mom was like, okay, haha, I'm gonna staple the pages together and here's your book, right? But since she had a vision, right? She's got this, self-discipline, she's got motivation, she learned how to have an idea and bring it to reality. She's like, no, mom, that's not a book. That's not what I'm asking for. So she persisted with her mom, right? She's not bugging her, she's not nagging her, but she's persuading her to get the book properly printed. So after a couple of weeks, she got her book print, like the mom printed the book and actually got multiple copies printed so that she could start selling her book to her friends in the neighborhood, her friends at school, and even their parents. Right. So 5 years old, she knows how marketing works.
Oh,
Knows
published
how,
author.
yeah,
Yes.
published author. And she knows how taxes work at that point too, because 5 years old, they got them paying taxes. Right? So that's what's possible. That's what's possible for a child when they are supported, step by step with the resources that we have, with the tools that we have, with the systems that we have, right? And doesn't matter what your background is because our mission is to equalize education for everybody while also providing meaningful work to many, right? So it doesn't matter if you're from, a family that comes from a great neighborhood, right, has everything going for them, doctors, families, mother's a doctor, dad's a lawyer, or you're coming from a not so well-off environment, right? Like with the tools, resources that we have, like our idea and what it does is again fundamentally gives an individual child the ability to be able to learn on their own and teach themselves, right? So our goal actually is for them to not have a tutor, right? Like we don't want them to be working with us after some time. Like we want them to be empowered and be able to take their lives to that next level.
Yeah, and I love the name in itself, limitless, because I always talk about no limits. Like my girls understand there's no limits to anything. Like you really
Yeah.
can do anything that you you
Mhm.
you think of, because
That's
everything started as an idea. Like that's what like
mhm.
people don't realize. Like everything you use, everything that you utilize started as somebody's idea, and then they put it
Mm.
out. You know, and I
Yeah.
always told them to focus on a problem and then create the solution for it, because that's how we make the world better. Like, what do you see
Absolutely.
wrong? And how can we make a solution for it? Because we always identify the problems, but not many actually work on the solution, and we need solutions
Use-
always.
Yeah.
Yes, so limitless education, I love that because it really is no limits.
And then group. So we're doing it all together, right? You cannot change
Yes,
the
the
world by
collective.
yourself.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, you better say it. Yes, you cannot do it by yourself. Yes, it needs to be done together. I
Mm-hmm.
love it. So, okay, walk us through it. Walk us through like what do you offer? How does this look? Because you say you're also empowering parents, so you're not just working with these little beautiful geniuses as far as
Yeah.
these kids go, but you're also making sure that the parents are equipped.
Yeah, so what we do is when the family contacts us or we have a conversation with them is we first like to have an assessment, right? It's like a psychometric skills test that looks at any of their hidden strengths, hidden talents, hidden weaknesses. And I like to say that because even if again, for those parents that feel like their kid is like top of the class, they're doing the best, there's also this concept of the brick wall in education, right? Where there in every class, right, there's the quick student, there's the average student, and then there's a slow student, right? But because in these schools, there's 30 kids in a class sometimes, right? The teacher can only go at the pace of either the slowest or the average kid. So even if your kid is the smartest child in that class, there's some things that they just never got a chance to learn, right? Those become like
Will
missing,
not get challenged.
right?
Yes, they will not get challenged.
And then in the same vein, there's crack bricks. So those are things that you didn't learn 100%. So let's say you're taking like a science exam, you get 85%. Okay, that's a B, right? For a lot of people, that's a good grade. But that's 15% of the information that you did not understand. And again, because the teacher got 29 other children to look out for, they can't sit with you one to one to make sure that last 15% is covered up. So that becomes a crack brick. So now imagine you go take the next test, right? Chapter 2. You get 90% then. So technically you're doing a bit better, but that's still 10% that fell through, right? But now this can extrapolate to the next class, right? Now you're in your math class and you're not getting 100%. Then your English class, you're not getting 100% on everything. But then the next grade, right? And the next year. And that 10% here, that 15% there, 20% there, it all starts to compound and compound and compound. And that creates cracked bricks in your education, in your understanding, right? So with our assessment, what we do is we look at all those points. Where are your crack bricks? Where are your um, missing bricks? Even crumble bricks as well. So it's not about what you learn; it's also about how you learn something, right? So if I ask you, what's 1 plus 1? What would you say? 2. Okay. Now let's say we go to South Africa.
Or 11. Look, or 11.
Some people say it's 1, but we'll stick with the standard, right?
Okay.
It's 2. Let's say we go to South Africa. What's 1 plus 1 equal in South Africa?
I would think 2. I haven't
2.
been there though, so I don't know. But go ahead.
It's 2. It's 2. They say it differently, right? It's different language,
Okay.
but fundamentally, math is math, and that's the point.
No.
You go to Japan, 1 plus 1 equals 2. Um, France, 1 plus 1 equals 2. So what you learn is the same, right? And that's the thing too with between private school, public school, charter school, magnet school. It's all school, right? So the content is the same, but the difference is how did you learn that, and who did you learn that from, right? Because there's some teachers I know where teaching to them is just a job, right? They go in as late as possible, leave as early as possible, just to get as much money as they can, right? So they can all go home and do what they actually want to do, right? So if the person that you're learning from, or the person that your child is learning from, doesn't actually have a love of learning, again, when the children are going through school, like how are they going to develop for themselves that love of learning lifelong when the person they're learning from sees it as, hey, you just gotta get in and out as fast as possible, right? Again, I'm not saying every teacher is like that, but they can also only do so much with regards to how the system is set up. They only have so much leeway. So that would be like an example of a crumble brick, right? Let's say like your kids in school and they have to read in front of class and they make a mistake and say people start laughing at them, right? How are they gonna feel? How would you feel as a parent? I actually have a example of when I was in grade school and the one of the kids in my class, we were learning about what's it? The story of Adam and Eve, right? Story of Adam and Eve. And
In class? Where this must have been still in Ghana.
it was like Sunday school.
Oh no.
Yeah, Sunday school. And the teacher, the one of the kids raised his hand to ask a question. It was like fourth grade. And the he asked a question. He said, if everybody comes from Adam and Eve, how come I'm black? Valid question, right? It's fair enough.
Very, very
But
well.
teacher at that point didn't know how to answer the question, and everybody in the class just starts laughing, right? So
Aw.
they have to send him out of
And
class.
that was a great question. Oh my gosh.
It's a valid question. So they have to send him out of class, and when he gets back, you can imagine how he felt, right? Never asked a question ever again because he thought he got in trouble, and everybody laughed at him, right? So now to this day, he's 20 something years old. It's still hard for him to ask questions sometimes because in the back of his mind he has that thought of, okay, what if I get in trouble for this, right? What if somebody laughs at me? So the way in which, and that's him learning, okay, let me ask questions, right? So in the way in which that child learns too, the environment, that will affect them for the rest of their lives. So if your kids are at school for 8 hours a day, right, you'll know every single thing that happened. And they're not going to tell you every single thing that happened, right? So you really have no idea what's happening, right? And again, all that stuff will affect them and turn them into the person that they will be when they're adults, right? So those are crumble bricks. So we look at those points too. Okay, what are the emotional things that a child is going through? Why are they, if they're having behavior issues, why are they having that? Where does that come from? And we take a step-by-step systematic approach to go through all the things that they've ever learned or should have learned and make sure their foundation is set, or rebuild it if it needs to be rebuilt, right? Because you can't build a house, right? The house or the skyscraper of your life on a poor foundation, right? At some point, something like pandemic happens, right? And then your house comes crashing down, or AI comes, takes your job, house comes crashing down, right? So again, the way that we work is to look at all those points step by step, correct them if they need correcting. They don't, okay, how can we enhance them and fortify them for the child, both the child and the adult, right? And the parent. Because the parents, we all went through the same system. Hasn't changed in the last 50 years. So the same thing your child is experiencing, you've also experienced at some point. So we have to do that same re-education process for the parents, right?
It's on a social level, it has changed big time. So I always talk, so I probably would have dropped out of school if I was in school during the social media time. Like, oh no, get me out of here. Because it was already too dramatified, when I was there. But
Yeah.
like
And that,
socially, like, this is like well beneath me. I'm not doing this.
yeah.
And then no, all the talk of homeschool, I would have went home and told my mom, okay, we're homeschooling now. Like this, my friend told me something about homeschool, and I feel like that's something I need to do.
I
But
decided.
yeah, no. Other than that, things have not changed, and I always talk about the irony of parents feeling ill-equipped to teach their kids, but
Hmm.
came through the same system that their children are now going to,
Hmm.
that left them feeling ill-equipped. So what cycle are we going to break that way? If you
Precisely.
if you're not stepping in to do anything different.
Precisely, precisely. Yeah, and that's again, that's how we help a lot of families. One of the most recent families we started working with late last year, when we showed her, our tools, our philosophy, she was like, okay, I definitely, know I need to work with you because, as a mother, I know I can only do so much, right? As a mother, I know I want the best for my child, right? He was about to go into first grade or second grade at that point, and she's like, okay, like I know that I only know so much, right? You guys are the experts, and so like just support me, right? I just need that support to make sure that I'm on the right path. Just even as a mother still sending their kids to school, but wanting to make sure that as a mother she's doing the right thing, and she'd be able to get everything possible for her kids.
Indeed, because a lot of parents have trauma with the school system, like a
Mhm.
lot of unaddressed trauma that they experience. Like you said, how did they come up, like come up as far as learning? How did their teachers talk to them? How did the principals handle them? All that stuff stays with them. So a lot of parents don't even want to step into their children's school
Mhm.
because of what their experience looked like. So we gotta like empower the parents to remind them that no, that's your child. Don't just send them away and hope for the best. No, like no,
Mhm.
go in there, ask questions, go in there, look at books, go in there and talk to the people who are around your child for majority of their day.
Mhm. Give your child a childhood that they don't have to heal from. Yeah, we like to say.
Yes, yes, big time. I just feel like so much of our children's purpose is lost through the
Mhm.
school system. It's like, I just remember seeing so many artists, so many kids that are just like profound in things that they couldn't really, hone in on because they had to do the science, math, social stuff, the regular academics throughout the day, that their gifts and their talents were just pushed to the side, and so they downplayed their. I see some of their kids like their drawings or whatever, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. And they're like, oh, it's okay, and I'm just like, no, no, really, it's amazing, and but it's just like it's something that's just drained out of them, like their light is just, it's just so dim.
Yeah, yeah. That's the system. That's the system.
Yes,
So we gotta
yes.
empower them, make sure that they retain that innocence and just that creativity, right? So that they always have that ability to go out, create, change, and do what they need to do, right? To become responsible young adults, right?
Yes. So, okay, this is virtual. You all are working with parents virtually, or y'all have
So
in
we have
person also?
we do a couple different things, right? From tutoring to consulting to counseling, even, right? I would say most of the work that we're doing right now is in person.
Okay.
Because, we want to be able to cultivate this local community, right? Have children that grow up together, right? They have that network as they're growing up. But we do a lot of stuff online as well, right? But I would say a big part of our focus is that in person. In person, but we
Okay,
do
because you
right
say
here.
you all are in what, 33 countries?
30 countries.
30 countries.
Mhm.
That's intense. I love that. Global. I saw that
Mhm.
in your bio. I didn't read the whole thing, but I saw that global. It's like, oh, and then
Mhm.
I did. Yeah, but then I did read the whole thing because you were talking about you needed to find like your niche, like what it is that you wanted to do as
Mhm.
far as how to help the education or the issues that you saw in the education system, and you found it with Limitless.
It's here. It's here.
Built it.
So
Yes.
now we just bring it to as many parents as possible, or as many parents as possible.
So how many states are you all in?
Shoot, I'm definitely not in 100% of the states at this point. I think like 27-ish, 27.
Okay.
Yeah,
So families, I mean, typically they can find you all because your group must be huge. Like you group, you think there's
yeah, yeah,
a few people, but like it's a lot of y'all.
yeah. If you're looking for us, you'll find us. But we're also looking for you, right? So let's all meet in the middle.
Do you all partner with schools?
So we don't typically work with schools right now. We're not against it, but some of the conversations that we've had, we just noticed that, especially since our philosophy is for the children to be able to teach themselves, that can be a bit threatening to even educators, right? Who that's their job, right? That's their livelihood, that's their career. And so if you're giving a child the tools to be able to teach themselves, and they don't need to rely on the teacher anymore, like what's the teacher gonna do? But in that sense, that's why we do have tutoring. So we are looking for educators that still want to have an impact, but understand that there are problems in the system and they can only do so much, but still want to have an impact on their communities, right? With the families that they work with, right? So we were always open to talking and collaborating, right? But it's up to them. It's up to the
Yeah,
system.
I talked to some teachers, or I've been on panels with some teachers, and the thought of parents being involved sometimes seems threatening to them. And
Hmm.
it's like that's where the foundation started. I found
Hmm.
one of my mom's old report cards, and on the front, it talks about parent involvement. Like it had a whole paragraph about how important the parent was in that school, like, for your child's education in that school. My mom was born in 1963, so this is probably like around 1970, like, yeah,
Hmm.
1970. That the emphasis was still placed on the parent, but now it's like it's a separation, and that's like, okay, how do we bridge that? How do we bridge that gap? Because parents have to be involved for the success. It has to. It's like the formula does not work without the parent. It doesn't.
Absolutely. No, never, never. And the way that happens is having conversations like this, having honest, open conversations of, okay, let's be real about the situation and not sugarcoat what's happening to your child, not sugarcoat what's happening in society, what's happening in the system. Like if you actually want the best for your child, you have to, be willing to share, be willing to be open and honest, and not just, think that they are, the best kid in the planet, right? Because we all need support. We all need some help, right? And you're going to get that help and that real support, when you are open, willing to have a true, honest conversation of where you're at and where you actually want to go, you know?
Gotta remind parents that you don't have to know it all. Like this isn't a game of know it all. It's about being able to find the resources that work for you. So if you know how to do research, that goes a long way.
Right.
Just being able to find that support, be able to build your community, be able to, be able to lean on what you know will help you get to where you're trying to be.
Yeah. And we've got pretty much all of it figured out, right? I'm not gonna say all of it because there's always again room to grow, room to develop and create. But that's why we're here. Like that's why we built this group so that families, children, parents have a place to go, be settled, and just continue to collaborate and learn from each other, right? To all so that we all become the best possible version of ourselves for our families. That's the philosophy.
Where do we find a Limitless Education Group?
I'm sorry.
Where do we find you all?
So you can find us on just look up for me, Jude Poku on right now on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, Limitless Education Group. You can drop us an email, info@limitlesseducationgroup. or send me a text, give me a call, 973-641-2208. Happy to talk, for 10, 15 minutes, see if what we're doing, actually makes sense for you. And if not, always happy to also point you in the right direction.
We'll have all that in the description also. Before I let you go though, I have a couple more, just two more things.
Okay.
One, with all that you do and understanding that you are pouring yourself out into this education world, and we know that it's an intense world, how do you take care of yourself? How do you self-care?
How I self-care? Well, I have an amazing wife, right, who takes care of me, right? She works with us, but she definitely makes sure that I have all the nutrients I need to go out there, help other families. We like to watch a lot of movies together, go on dates, eat some great food. She's got some great taste, so I kind of just like leave the self-care to her, and she makes sure that I'm able to keep going. So shouts out to my wife, Sandra. She's my anchor.
Oh, that's beautiful. 'Cause y'all don't have kids yet. Y'all are still
Got
on
one
the
on the way.
pre-board.
One on the way.
One on the oh,
Yeah, first one.
oh, congratulations.
Thank
Nice. What did she do?
July. July. So
Oh, right around the corner. Oh, yes. Y'all ready?
as ready
Because
as
now it's
you
time to put all this in the, yes, it's time to put
hey,
all this into practice. Like,
it's already been in practice. So without a shadow of a doubt, we know how she'll end up, right? Now it's just again about putting more people around her so that we can all like she'll have peers, right? Peers that are also geniuses.
I love, since they're what toddlers can read. But I'm sure y'all probably have the same plan or have sat down and did like a similar plan because he taught his toddler to read at I believe two.
Mhm.
You're probably gonna be on it, or probably already they may come out reading. I don't know. I don't know. Y'all a little advanced, but that's beautiful. Awesome. Congratulations. Big congratulations. Um, Last thing. If parents didn't hear anything else in this conversation, leave them with three things you want them to make sure they take away.
Huh. So it's a great question. Three things I want a parent to take away. So, I mean, maybe they already know this, but nobody can possibly care more about your child than you, right? So if you are leaving them in the hands of the system for 8 hours a day, like whoever is there, they may be great people, right? But they also have their own families. They got their own lives to take care of, right? So they can only do so much for your child. So, and as a parent, you have to learn how to take responsibility, right? Actually learn to be involved as much as possible with your child's education, right? Because whatever you know, they will learn, they will know, right? So in that same vein, let's say the second one is you have to develop yourself too as a parent, right? You still have to continue to learn, right? Because the work that we do is not just for children. It's also for adults. It's for everybody, right? So you have to also be continuing to learn, continue to learn how to process information, develop your skill sets so that you can empower your children with that as well, right? Because children become carbon copies of their parents, of their families, right? And three, hmm, three, let's say, I'll leave it at two. I'll leave that two.
What? No, you're
That
supposed to
two.
get three. Give me one more. Like what? How you gonna change? Like what? No, one more.
What do I want parents to take away? To take away. Um, Let me see. Let me see.
Make you think. Yes, you're gonna think on
Yeah,
this one.
dig deep,
Yeah, think
dig deep
dig
for it.
deep, Mr. Soon to be about to have my own. What do I want parents to know?
Hmm, 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 hmm.
Thinking
Uh,
hard too, y'all. These
yeah.
eyes are moving, honey. He just thinking. It could be on something with Limitless. Like, hmm,
Hmm. I mean, we are planning a cruise
okay,
for next year, right? So if you're
okay.
watching this before April 2026, We are planning
Definitely.
cruise, with a bunch of families that we work with. So if you again want to see in real life, real time, the work that we do, and also want to take your kids on a great vacation, right, where they can interact with a bunch of families that we work with again from across the world, right? Reach out and we can get you details on that, and you can see for yourself, how powerful our methods are, our philosophy, and our style of education is. Okay.
Thank you, Jude. Thank you. Hold on, thank you for pulling that out. Yes, but parents understand always and forever. This is not a journey you have to do alone. There are really, really passionate individuals that will ensure that you're equipped, because you already are, essentially, because they came out of you, they came from you, so you know them better than anyone. We just want to empower you and remind you of just how equipped you are to be your child's leader in all essence of their life. Like, there, you will always be their guy, you will always be their go-to. So do not pass that reign off to anyone else. Just find the resources that will help you, find the support, build the community, because it is there and there it is needed. This is not a journey you have to do alone, so tap into it. But there are no limits, and remember that always. There really are no limits to any of this, and you have little geniuses at home. So hone in on it. Let them thrive. Let them be them. But pour into them and pour into yourself. And homeschool your kids.
100%.
You doing